Good morning, everybody, and afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And thank you very much for the invitation, Stuart and the team at BrightTalk, to participate in this event. My name's Phil Ball, and as Annie says, I'm the Joint Managing Director at CleverTouch Marketing. We are not a financial services marketing company, just to be very clear, and we're only bounded by our own rationality and what we know. However, we are a technology marketing specialist. Now, some of you might say, well, what does that really mean? Well, for us, we work in the sphere of marketing automation. That is our specialism. That's all we do every day is eat, sleep, and breathe marketing automation. And as you can see from the slide there, we work across many different verticals and many different markets. And what that means for financial services is that we can bring a different lens to the views and opinions of what might be in your industry and take some of those learnings and some of those advanced thinkings from those more early adopters in the market that have been doing this for some time and apply them to your market, giving you rapid results and allowing you to do something different in the market. There's a good selection there of enterprise customers, and I'm going to be talking to a couple of those within the course of my presentation as well. Okay, so are you fat cats? Well, there's been a lot in the press in the last year. I think the last presenter talked about the trust element. We don't see that as being an issue here. We actually see you have a really important role to play in society. If I'm planning my pension, I don't go to Starbucks, David. I go to somebody else who's going to do my pension for me. I go to an asset manager or I go to a pension advisor. There's a lot of rubbish that's been thrown at you in the past. What we see is that you've actually created a world-class financial services business here in the UK. In fact, probably one of the most successful in the world. If I look at what you've done, you should be very proud of it as an industry. And I know we've got represented some world-class brands here, and many of them are my customers, so I expect some heckling at the end, please. Also, I'd say that, you know, as a contribution to the GDP, I nearly said GDPR there, sorry, it slipped out there, apologies. You have contributed in 2017 6.5% of our GDP and employed around 1.1 million people in this market that are highly skilled, highly intelligent, highly engaging folks. So you should be proud of what you've achieved. However, you've also creating the next generation of entrepreneurs, and somebody in the last session referred to some of the new challenger markets and brands. And I picked out four here. What we see with these guys is they have a completely different approach to how they're going to tackle the financial markets in terms of marketing. In fact, we've got Simon from Han ETF here, and he's just signed up as a customer marketer. So thank you very much for the business, Simon. Also a BrightTalk customer, I believe. Simon's approach is taking a different lens on what financial services do, and today, engaging different types of agencies, bring new thinking, challenging, being disruptive. I think it's mentioned last time as well, very agile, fast-moving organization, at a pace that we're delighted. We see this often in technology startup businesses, where they really need to bring that technology disruptor to the market, and now we're seeing it in financial services. And if you look at most of these guys, they work in social, they have platforms on apps. You know, if you download your app store on Monzo, for example, you can do things like you can limit your children on their spending night out with Monzo. I've got a young son who goes out regularly, and I can cap the amount of spend he has available on his card. When he gets to the end of that amount, it doesn't work anymore. It's quite handy if you've got a student who's living in accommodation spending money. It's a good way of capping it, and you can measure things. So they are becoming very innovative, challenging the norm. So I'm going to give you some questions now. My theme will all be about 3 questions. So I'm going to challenge your thinking a bit. I'm going to make you challenge your own industry, and then go back and help you to give some solutions to fix the problem as well. So, where are we in financial services today? Some of you who have been to some of our presentations before in CleverTouch would have seen that we talk about market maturity and adoption in the market and maturity of marketing as an organization within your own business. What we often see in organizations is that very often the guys in marketing are the subservient service provider to the rest of the business. And I see I've got a few nodding heads here in the audience. Sales are king, they own the revenue. IT are the gatekeepers of compliance and data. Marketing are sometimes seen, and please excuse me if I offend somebody in the audience, I've got my marketing manager in the audience myself, so I've got to be really careful because I own sales and marketing in the business, as being in the colouring and crayoning department and issuing fact sheets. Nice to see some laughs. I think that we've got to change that perspective, and we've got to really raise our own game to have a credible place in the boardroom and raise our status and make sure that we're starting to become that respected equivalent partner. And it's unfair as well. However, I do think that in financial services particularly, if I look at some of the other industries which we work in, either in print or media or in software, they don't have such a limited outbound or marketing tactical strategy in play. In financial services, wherever I go, unfortunately, I see the same three core things being used. I see a huge amount of print being spent and a lot of money being spent on events. And that's a traditional thing that the financial services market do really well. Stuart referred to a case study earlier, and they're a customer of ours as well. And one of the first jobs there that we were able to do with that customer is give the stakeholder the ability to predict future revenue but based on past behavior at events. It was a key metric. It was a data-driven piece of work we did, pulling in the data from sales, from marketing, and events, and then being able to tell the business what events you can do and what events you shouldn't do. Make an informed decision. Kill the one in Spain if it's not one. The one in Japan, hot market, build it up more, promote it more. Make your choices based on data, not on gut feel or past behaviors. The other thing that I'd say is that, digital is something that's at the core of everybody's job now. Everybody should be thinking digital. However, in a lot of organizations we see, digital sits in the IT team. And they rely on coding from the IT team to set this up. They rely on the website to be built by IT. You need to take the power off of those guys and wrestle it back. You understand content. You understand channels. You understand what works and what doesn't work. Please take the initiative and wrestle it back off those guys and get it back into your domain. And that's not an easy challenge. It's a transformational piece of work that you've got to do. Trust me, if you take it on like some of our customers, you will reap the rewards personally and for the business, and you will be seen as an innovator. We're quite often seen in terms of marketers in the financial services market as seen as tactical and reactionary at best. Some in the room will know that that's not the case anymore because they've been on a longer journey, and now they're starting to be more strategic and planning and having that cadence to be able to deliver back to the business and demonstrate that value to the C-suite. However, in a lot of cases, there's still the case that a sales guy says, I've got an event next Wednesday, and it's the day before the event, and you've got to get all the collateral, the squidgy balls, the brochures, the panels, and all the speaker notes, and you've probably got to write the deck for them or retweak it. So marketing are always doing things in cyclonic change, and typically, you're being controlled by the business. You need to wrestle back that control and start being more programmatic. And Marketo and tools like BrightTalk can certainly help you get that pragmatic piece in place and start to demonstrate that control. So, just three things we could do about this. We can move from a sales-led thinking to a customer-led, and that's really important. Certainly, when I look at my children and some of the people who work in my organization, I'm probably the oldest guy in our organization, they very, very rarely go into a business and go into the branch. They usually research, as we heard from previous speakers. Google has brought distance learning to an art form for research, and you can find out anything about any product and any service remotely. So make sure you take that customer-led view and make sure that that has a relevance with your digital as well. The other thing is that marketing and digital need to coexist, and they need to work hand in hand with the plan and the way you're going to execute that strategy. If you leave it to IT and other areas of the business, there will be a disjointed strategy, and you end up with silos of information all over the business. And finally, challenge and be strategic. As somebody mentioned earlier, Marketo, be fearless. Be that person who's going to make that change and make a real difference and stand up for marketing. It's a great place to be right now. However, if you don't move with the times and you don't keep an eye on the environment and you don't see what's coming on and you don't plan to react to those changes and have a robust way of dealing with those changes, you will end up in a barren landscape. You won't have a direction. You won't be relevant to the organization anymore. So please be that change agent, start to push the boundaries of the rationale, and ultimately changing conditions and market are being driven by the customer, So be customer-focused and data-driven in your organization. And you can use these tools like Marketo and BrightTalk to give that information and statistics you need to make informed decisions about how you're going to move into what areas and make sure you understand it. And also, I think one other thing that we see quite often is that marketing should be seen as the radar, as the antenna to the market. Know what's changing, know what's coming down the line, know who your competitors are. Give the salespeople the ammunition and the insight and the intelligence and the data to know what's happening in the market, and then be able to work out what's happening inside your organization to support that objective, taking the competition out and understand how you fight with them competitively in a smart, intelligent, and engaging way. So, technology is often a vehicle for change. I'm going to pick on this one because I saw this at a Marketo conference, and it was a case study. This is one example that David pulled out earlier. Mine's slightly less complex than your one. But this is about how Microsoft are using BrightTalk and also Marketo to drive organizational change and transformation. And I'm going to just pick two of them. So if you look at their traditional model, old world marketing tools. Now, the background of that is they had several different layers of technology there, and none of it was joined up. None of it was succinct. They couldn't report on it. And if you had GDPR in play, trying to chase the source of that data would have been an absolute nightmare. Reporting would have been an absolute car crash. So having that a strategy to join all the systems together was immense. Now what we have is a situation in the digital world where they've connected marketing to sales and other platforms, to have that view across all of the digital estate so you can actually see what's happening with all the buyer journeys. You can actually start to influence some of the content that's being delivered there. And sales can start to see the value that marketing are bringing to the business. They're no longer seen as the crowning and colouring in department. They're really seen as a strategic player. I think the other thing here is, an important one, is they had a complete disconnect with the customer and with data and the purchasing cycles. And now what they're able to do is have a complete 360 view of the customer and all their digital engagement and all the little touch points on the web. So wherever they land, they leave a digital footprint. Now, Marketo is smart enough to be able to programmatically program those things and filter them down to the salespeople so they can then act intelligently and have business insight to be able to act accordingly. Not just click on a website, not just download a brochure, but look at the whole engagement, either as an individual or as an account base, if you're using something like ABM, account-based marketing. So it gives you that insight and intelligence. The other thing that I would say is that, you know, they had a sales-driven purchase process, pretty much the same way as we see in financial services. But they're a tech company, one of the world's largest tech companies. And, you know, they've got hundreds of thousands of sales guys, resellers, and distributors worldwide. Now they've gone to a buyer-driven process. So it's all driven by the buyer and data and customer-centric view on life. Now that's really important because to move to that agenda, you've got to not only look at what you're doing today, you've also got to transform your content, your copy. Somebody asked earlier about the amount of content that people produce with inside financial services. I've got one customer who's got 20 people in their content team. We've got 3 people in marketing automation. That is the wrong ratio. That needs to change. I get a laugh from the audience there. Because the real thing is, you guys have got some wonderful content. You know how to tell stories. You're beautiful at it. But what you're not good at is telling the business what's happening with the content at the right time. So don't go buy a load of content. Repurpose it. Cut it up. Use it intelligently. Use it smart. Repurpose it. Make it really work and sweat the asset. Another company here, we had the pleasure of working with Fujitsu at the very beginning of their journey looking at what they want to do with marketing automation. Now, for them, it was very much a business transformation program. I'll give you some idea of scale. These guys have got 300 plus marketeers in Europe. They operate in 27 languages. They sell everything from a mouse to a warship. Their diversity in their product range and their verticals is huge. We've looked at what they're trying to do and given them a real robust plan. They've set up a digital steering committee to make sure that they execute on their strategy and deliver what the business were looking to do, using technology as an enabler and a facilitator of change for business transformation. And they've got some fabulous results. In fact, we recently won Marketo International Partner of the Year based on some of this work and customer feedback we did recently. So we're really proud of that relationship. And if I look at some of the things they're doing, it's not about click-throughs and opens. It's about being a change agent. It's challenging the norm. It's organizing your business to be fit for purpose, fit to compete. It's about reporting. It's also about being compliant. GDPR crops up a lot, but if you've got silos of data and you've got a disparate bunch of marketing technologies that don't all talk to one another, it's very difficult for you to have that digital engagement under control and managed so that you can actually demonstrate to the business you're in control and you're compliant. It's certainly very important in the financial services industry. I think one of the interesting ones there was that driving efficiency and driving systems save them a huge amount of money. And we're not talking just about people, we're talking about negotiating with vendors in different markets, different procurement people working with different suppliers, different EULAs, so legal get involved. So it's a plethora of savings there by consolidating down to a core set of primary platforms. Okay, so on to my next question. So where is Martech in Fin Services today? Well, somebody mentioned it earlier. Are you leaders or laggards? You are a very, very conservative industry and very risk adverse, and quite rightly so, because you're entrusted with the health, wealth, and happiness of most of the population here within the UK and Europe. So you've got to be very cautious with what you do. We completely get that. But you are very late to the party. The early adopters of the tech businesses, they throw tech at things because it's nice and shiny. But they realize if they're going to grow fast and they're going to scale, they need to underpin it with robust technologies to give them that scale and give them the ability to execute against what the business are asked to do in sales and marketing. Now, the thing is here is that these technologies are available today, give you that scale, give you that efficiency to go and be that disruptor. And we see the vast majority of people in this market as late adopters because you're cautious. You want to see someone who's done it before, done it first. Well, now we've got a plethora of customers who've done it before in financial services. In fact, some people in the audience are on their second or third company now doing it, and they're doing it exceptionally well. I would say that the adoption where it has been deployed has not been the most advanced thinking. Again, they're still in that cautious stage of adoption. I know that Simon, having spoken to him, he's got a really ambitious plan of what he's going to do in marketing automation. And I hope we live up to your expectations, Simon, helping you to challenge your thinking and bring in new ways of working together as well. Also, I think that technology is not a natural thing for marketing to do. You're not exactly what I would call mature buyers of technology. And I don't mean that as an insult. If I look at IT, they've been buying technology for years. They understand how to buy it. They understand what to do with it. They understand it and manage it. You've got to work collaboratively with your IT teams and sales teams. Wrestle control back, as I said earlier. Make sure they're part of the governance team. Make sure they're part of the stakeholders. If you leave them out, they will stop your process dead in the water, particularly when it comes to CRM and data and compliance. So please, anybody who's thinking of going on the journey of even thinking about marketing automation, come and talk to me afterwards and we'll talk about the stakeholders you need to get involved in the process and the types of people you need to win over and what the story is for each of those business units. And we can come up with some really compelling reasons why it would be good for all the businesses, not only from a personal learning perspective, but also from a business perspective. We've got to bring it back to business every time. Otherwise, you'll be down in the weeds saying, well, you're just looking at click-throughs and opens, and that's not relevant to business drivers. Okay. Going back to the other areas that affect you, the biggest problem and the Achilles heel, actually, is not the marketing knowledge or know-how or wisdom in the room. You're all extremely talented marketeers. You'll do some really cool stuff. The biggest challenge, actually, is the improper use of CRM. I'm a sales guy, have been for 25 years. I am the most ill-disciplined person when it comes into forecasting, filling in forms, working out what I've done in the CRM. The CRM is typically the dumping ground for people to put stuff in when they want something to go away. For my own business, and I'll show you some stuff in a minute, I am now absolutely metronomic about the way we use sales and marketing and our MA platform to drive my business and predict future revenues based on past performance, but also what's currently in plan. If your CRM team and your sales team aren't with you, you're really going to struggle with getting this to happen. So here's a very simple chart. It's a snapshot of a pipeline. Now, I've put up a simple one. Those of you who want to see some real detailed reporting, I'm happy to have a conversation with the folks in the audience here directly afterwards. Those who are virtual, please email me directly and I'll talk to you. we talk about a methodology in most of our customers around pipeline, upside, commit, one business. Most of the organizations I go into in financial services don't have robust pipeline management to be able to demonstrate to the organization where they are at any particular time. Now, some of you may have that completely nailed. Fabulous, well done. And, you know, that's a real result. Once you've got that side of things under control, marketing and automation is a great way of feeding additional data into that will give you more insight, the sales guys, to be able to behave from it. But the thing here is that without this being in place and without there being good quality of control and reporting, as marketers, your marketing return on investment cannot be measured. So you can't demonstrate what's happening. And because the systems are interlinked now, it's a really important piece of the puzzle to fix. Now, this is one of my charts I've asked Matt, my marketing manager, to produce, and we get this daily. And this is about me having sales and marketing aligned in the organization. We do this for our customers as well. And it doesn't talk about click-throughs and opens. It talks about things like, you know, what is our conversion ratio? If we give the sales guys a lead, or ladies a lead, what do they do with it? How efficient are they? What is our close ratio? That's a bit off. I need it to be a bit better than that. So I will be talking to myself about that. However, if I look at some of the activity there, we can see there's a massive spike in March. That was because we did a piece of marketing there that spiked the inbound leads in. However, unfortunately, when we look at the things that returned on the bottom, marketing qualified accounts, the brown represents return to marketing. That means that when the people came and qualified them, they weren't actually a good fit for us. They weren't good. So what do we do then? We remediated our data, took those guys out. They weren't a good fit for the organization. Why send them information that's not relevant to them? So it's about targeting, segmentation, and positioning based on the data and based on the feedback we have from the MA platform, providing us insight and information so we can act as a data-driven company. Now, we're a services business. So one of the things we have to make sure is that we know what's coming down the track in the future to predict to hire people. We need to know when to scale when we land a big project. If I don't have an accurate forecast of what's coming in from marketing and sales, I can't actually plan for what the business needs to grow and scale. The other thing here is that this is a live dashboard, and I get it on my phone. So if you've got executives who need to understand up to date, up to the minute, what is marketing doing, what's your contribution to the revenue, it's a fabulous way of giving these guys this insight. It gives you ability to be on the front foot with live data about how well you are contributing to the business. It moves that business discussion up to the boardroom. So, 3 things. I talked to folks in the audience here. There's 3 things here that I would always get you guys to do. So, focus on customers and commercial now. So what I mean by that is the sales guys always talk about forecasting futures, as do the markets. A lot of marketers talk about ROI, which is looking backwards. What you've got to do is be able to do both. So you've got to be on both sides of the equation here. And you've got to provide that commercial nous to be able to have those intelligent business conversations with the organization from an established presence of data and also with the information you have about what you're being told digitally about your customers in the pipeline, in the engagement, in the process, and in the prospect. Really be a champion for the stand-up and proper use for CRM. We've got some organizations we worked with in financial services who we've said, give the sales guys some real marketing objectives that is linked to their comp plan. If they don't do these things and give marketing the data they need, GDPR was a great driver for that, by the way, get them to do those MBOs. If they don't do the MBOs, they don't get paid on the product. That's very hard to do, but it works. And if you've got the sales leadership involved in that, to get better data in, to get that governance and get that rigor, it will reap benefits for you as a marketer, for your segmentation, your targeting, and your positioning, plus the insight on the customers you will gain from that data. Also, I'd say that, you know, tech has become really complex. We've had this referred to in the previous speakers. It's an arms race out there. There was a speech given by an analyst a few years ago where they said that the CMO would have as much fiscal clout to spend on marketing technologies as the IT CMO, the IT directors, and the people in IT who are buying technology. That's complete nonsense. What you have to do is look at this and say, it's madness. You know, there's so much coming into this market here. What I'd say is, just look at this. It's a fabulous example on a PowerPoint. It's a great demonstration of how people built a great tech stack. Now, I would imagine, if that was my business, I'd be looking at all the different silos of data and then looking at how they join up together. It looks great on PowerPoint, and in reality, to try and manage that as a marketing team, it's really difficult to get a handle on all these different platforms delivering all these different essence into the business. So, start with three simple things and build from there. So, establish the tech spine. That's where you need to start. You can build out from there. So start with your CMS, which is your website. Get your marketing automation in place. Then look at your CRM and get that stack in. Once you've got that stack in play, you can then start to do the vast majority of things you need to do as a marketeer. Then start adding some new technologies like BrightTalk and Cvent to complement that marketing mix, to make that richness of data, vary your channels, bring that insight in, to Stuart's point about the metrics. Make sure you can report on the metrics of those channels in an intelligent way that drives those customer journeys that you can then report on from the marketing automation platform into the business, into CRM. That revenue attribution model is a reality. You can do it with these three things. The other thing we see quite often is that businesses who are large have loads of spreadsheets, and people have loads of data in their desks, and sales guys are predictably good at keeping the customers in their back pockets. In my last job, I ran a financial services consulting business, and I wouldn't let my sales guys have access to my black book. No way. They're too valuable to me. These are my key customers. These are guys who spend money. There's no way I'm letting one of my sales guys have a look at that. That's had to change, and now we've got a digital engagement process with GDPR. Those black books no longer exist. Let's get the spreadsheets out of the business and start reporting properly. Okay. One of the other things that we referred to earlier is there's lots of stuff in the market around skills, and it's a real challenge. This market of London is so hot, there's so many opportunities for bright talent that there's a bit of a talent war going on out there. And one of the things, it's incumbent on myself as a business owner and you as leaders in your business is to make sure that you are relevant, your people are relevant, and you're doing the right things to drive business forward. And part of that is to make sure that you focus on the business reasons, a bit like Microsoft and Fujitsu. Don't focus on we're going to do email better. You won't get anywhere with that conversation. You're going to do landing pages and they're going to look really cool. The business don't care, frankly. They're interested in, is it going to make money, save money, or drive efficiency? Those are the things you need to be thinking about. And also, make sure you have a view. Are you going to build the skills internally? Are you going to build that externally? Or are you going to rely on somebody like us to do it for you as a managed service? And each model works, and you might have a mixture of all three, but you've got to have a plan, because when you take on marketing automation, it's a journey, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. You want to get some quick wins, but you also want to bring your skills up. There might be different skills in the business that you need that you don't have today. You need to think about what those skills might look like. But also, it's career opportunity for folks within your team to grow them as individuals, get accredited, get that on their CVs, grow their own personality, give them something new and exciting to get into, and give them motivation to start adopting some of these new technologies. And I'm saying be brave and bring new thinking. Well, actually, to coin marketer phrase, fearless marketing. That's what you need to be. Fearless marketers. Be brave. Go out there and do what you do well, but do it in the context of business, process, control, and the ability to predict what's happening in your organization. So, without further ado, that's me. Thank you very much.
Right. So Andy, as you mentioned earlier, he's got the pleasure of running off to the cricket now. So he's passed over the Q&A session to me. And I've got a bunch of questions that's come through here. Actually, I've got them on my phone, so I don't need them on that. So I'm sure you're all ready and revving to give us a grilling and ask lots of questions. Busy writing down on your notepad. So what I'm going to do is open out to the floor. I've got a bunch of questions that's come online, but that's no excuse, because I know you're going to sit there all kind of cross-armed and waiting for it. So I'm going to start. Let's open up the floor. We've got about 15 to 20 minutes to cover. Doesn't need to cover all that, but it'd be great if someone could kick off with some questions between us. And first of all, thanks very much for your presentation. So, any questions? Come on, the old base.
Stunned silence.
Yes,
wow.
In the middle here. So, is there a microphone? Just coming through.
That lady there.
Yeah, thank you. If you could just say who you are, company and role, that would be very helpful. Thank you.
My name's Sally. I'm head of marketing operations for a pensions consulting firm called Owens Robertson. Might have heard of them. We've got Microsoft Dynamics and Click Dimensions. How do I convince my CRM manager that Marketo is superior to Click Dimensions?
I think they're very different technologies, frankly, if I may address that. I think it's not about the technologies, actually. It's more around what are the business pain points you're trying to solve. You've got the technology already. Why isn't it working for you? What are you trying to do that that's not providing you with? And Marketo is probably a much better fit from a technology perspective. We've got another lady in the audience actually here who had that same debate with our team for about 6 months. And they paid us to do a study that actually looked at the two technologies in line with their business. And the answer was the same as I told them in the first meeting. Buy Marketo, don't waste your time going out to tender, and don't pay me £10,000 to tell you the answer, because that's the answer. So I'll be really honest with you. Love to talk to you after the meeting, but Click Dimensions is not in the same class of technology. It's not an enterprise platform. It's an add-on, and it won't support I would imagine, what you're trying to do as a marketer. Otherwise, you'd be doing it today.
That is my sense. I mean, I'm going to start getting really sticky with it and looking at it in some detail. But just to your point earlier, we've got all the tech. The biggest challenge is to get the sales guys and consultants to put the information into CRM for us to be able to get cracking with a lot of this stuff.
Yep.
And that's the biggest challenge. And
that's usually the challenge. The sales guys are pretty focused on revenue and quarter and numbers, and they're paid by results. And CRM is just an annoyance. What you've got to do is try and elevate the conversation around, you're not just filling in the forms because you want you to, it's actually around smarter, better engagement with customers and better, smarter, faster marketing.
But having said that, Microsoft Dynamics and Marketo are very good friends in terms of their integration and the amount of customers that actually use that combination in the market. We have, pre-built native APIs that connect Microsoft Dynamics to Marketo, and we have a lot of customers out there that do that. So it's actually a good marriage that we have with Microsoft in that context.
Okay. Great question.
Did that address your question? Sorry.
Well done. Tom, can you just turn up the audio, please? Thanks.
Okay.
Alexa, yes, please. The microphone's over here. Joe, you mind helping out with the mic?
Hi, my name is Alexia. I am head of digital marketing in EMEA in an asset management company. My question is for Phil. Phil, you were mentioning from Fujitsu that automation means organizational design. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the change in the teams based on marketing automation implementation, please?
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
Good question.
So when I talk about organizational design, it's a new way of thinking in terms of your marketing skills and your capability in your organization. And what you've got to really carefully think about is the roles and responsibilities of the people who are going to be using the infrastructure. And then you've got to assign the right type of skills to the right piece of the puzzle. And what we often see is that marketeers are not good at doing interpretation of data. So have you got some data scientists you can bring into the play and give them the reporting in an element? Have you got new grads that are really techie savvy? Bring those in and educate them and put them on a program to be accredited in Marketo. Give them the ability to level up their own skills and then utilize them. And then at the board, where you want to look at the change and the transformation, when we're talking about organizational design in terms of Fujitsu, it's about having the governance around what program goes what first, what region goes first, what are the pilots going to be, what is the data set looking like, how do we organize that region to have a set of skill sets to manage that independently or manage it centrally. Some organization will take a central marketing ops role and they manage it centrally, a bit like Bank of New York Mellon. Others will say, actually, I'm going to give everybody in the regions access to all the platforms and they're all going to have their own little access. I think you've got to look at the organizational design and the structure and the capabilities, and then you've got to build the model to support that, and then provide that education at different layers in the organization. It might be that you need your marketeers to think differently about marketing automation. It's a different way of thinking. It's a different way to build customer journeys. The content will be used in different ways. So it's that layer of how do you set those people up? Because if I want to educate you as a marketing director, I'm not going to have the same conversation as somebody who's in there building data models. It's a very different conversation. So you've got to have that model in mind. And as you know, we can certainly help you with that. Did that address your question? Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, I've got a couple that came in online. So, one for David. So, in terms of your world, what does a typical FS customer look like, and is it mostly B2C that came in?
Yeah, I would say that by and large, it is the B2C organised or the B2B, B2C, B2B2C organisations, typically the sort of wealth management, asset management, organisations with a, IFAs, advisor network, that sort of thing. Typically, these sales cycles are multi-touch, complex products over a long period of time. So it becomes an engagement with the customer, serving relevant information at increments throughout that journey to help them with that decision process. So it does tend to resonate very well with the B2B and the B2B2C market in FS.
How many here today are B2B, primarily?
Yeah.
Most of the audience, okay.
75%.
75%,
Yeah.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, what we've seen is the early adopters in the FS market are definitely asset managers because they have the complexity in that business model, and they need that diversity and segmentation when they're talking to different areas of the business, whether it's institutional or IFAs. Yeah.
Okay. Not a question, but one for me, Phil. So one of the challenges about adoption for marketing automation over the last few years, certainly within FS and asset management, is the ability to track sales flow, sales data, because it's such an intermediate platform. There's different channels, different platforms, drawing back that sales and attributing that to actual activity. I know for a lot of marketers has been quite a difficult thing to do. How has that changed? How has the sales culture changed in order to come on board, if it has at all?
It's a really interesting question, actually. A really good one. I think, first of all, yeah, it's a really difficult thing to do as you track through the different channels and it gets distributed. One of the things we often try to find out is the influence of the sale, not necessarily the revenue recognition, but where was it influenced and where can we demonstrate digitally that that has taken place, that handshake. You'll quite often find sales guys who will claim credit for bringing someone to an event because they met them down the pub, and actually started 6 months ago with marketing, inviting them to a webinar or an event or some sort of campaign, either physical or digital. And so quite often we're asked to do revenue attribution models to a point, and sometimes we're asked to build outside of the marketing automation platform and pull data in from other sources, build a little data warehouse, and then push it back in again, and then revenue attribution that way. It really depends on the architecture and the tools people are using. If you have a very tight set of flows in your business, it's very easy to do. If you have a complex model where you have distribution and you have retail and institutional, you've got to be really clear on your segmentation, targeting, position, but also really important on your reporting against each of those segments as well.
Okay. Anyone have a view on that? Can resonate with that challenge? Renata?
Hi, Renata from Hsbc, B2B Marketing, lead for campaigns for Europe. So in fact, a kind of comment about what we're saying. We are currently implementing the marketing automation into B2B space. It's not Marketer, I'm sorry, but we do work quite closely with BrightTalk. The one thing that I wanted to share is the debate we had in our marketing function since a while about whether marketing is a science or art. And I think this is what we should be debating as well today. And I think it's a combination of both. We need science, we need data, but we can't forget about the art and the human element of it, especially in the B2B space. So I think this is quite important as well for us not to forget about it.
Yeah, think you're spot on. You know, there is always going to be, when it's a high net worth sale, when it's complex, and when people are trusting you with their personal assets or their company assets, there is always going to be a lot of human interaction in the sales cycle, and you can't take that away. Marketing's job, really, for me, and what we've learned from you guys, is it's to stay sticky when the activity is not happening in between. So, you know, the sales guy, as I say, will be focused, if he's any good, on the quarterly numbers. What's out here 6 months' time, he'll worry about that when he comes, because he's not being measured on it. That's the way I think about things. However, marketing's job is to stay relevant and provide that stickiness all the way. So when the guy does become relevant, the model takes over and says, okay, this guy's now started to engage with us on our Far East Asia funds or our property funds or whatever it is. You can then start to then tee up the sales guy with that business intelligence, say, actually, I know you're not planning to have a meeting with this guy in 6 weeks' time, but look at all this activity from this customer. There's been a burst of activity here. We can see it's changing. We don't want to miss the boat and ignore it, so let's act upon that now. Pick up the phone and have a conversation. If they then say, I'm not ready to buy, it's just a bunch of my researchers doing research for me because we're interested in this fund, great. When would be a good time to talk? So then that involves that customer interaction. But you can automate that process and set up those triggers in the same way as you can set up alerts. And that's true of all the MA platforms.
Yeah, and I think the art piece is content, in truth, you know, so you need content to get out there to engage and talk to your customers. So, you know, that evolution of text-heavy facts into stories, storytelling, continual conversations in the market is the art element to me. So how do you cut through so much noise and content out there and be different? Yeah. Okay, any further questions? I do have one more that's come in. No? Okay, so this is... Phil, you're popular today, I'm afraid. So maybe because you were last on, everyone's gone. Everyone else.
It's a microphone.
Yeah, is it really? Yeah. So, okay, and this, David, you might be able to answer this one as well. So, what investment, in terms of a percentage of budget, would you anticipate to have a proper marketing automation system go? Yeah? Okay. So that's one question. And you may well have already covered this, but what immediate disciplines do you need in the organization to prove ROI? And I'm just going to add to that a little bit. Like all technology, we all suffer with churn. Yeah. Because if you don't deliver value in the first year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is, then you're not going to get a renewal. So how do you help marketers produce the value so you avoid the churn rate and things like that? So how much does it cost? What disciplines do you need, and how do you avoid the churn?
Right, okay, so I'll tackle the tough one first, which is probably the budget one.
Yeah.
If I look at financial services market, there's a lot of discretionary spend goes on media advertising and stuff you can't measure and placement of ads. I think that if you were looking at a budget, there's a person in the room we've actually done this with, so I won't name her, but we took 5% of that budget and repurposed it to provide not only the software for the marketing automation platform, but also the professional services for the first year. So that entire budget didn't change. They just were intelligent and repurposing that budget and using it to drive smart things rather than non-measurable things. And they went to the board and said, this is what we want to do. We can actually measure this. Let's do this. And we'll do it for the first year. The ROI is actually pretty stunning. So that's one way of doing it. There are many different ways of carving up the budgets, as you will know. In terms of the way that the pricing is done, every single business will be different based on what you're trying to do and the speed and the complexity. So I won't address it's going to be you know, $500,000 or it's going to be $50,000 or $10,000 because I just don't know enough about the size and shape. So we tend to look at the size and shape, the complexity, and the business demands of what you're trying to do, because you can build these things modular. Start small, start simple, get some quick wins, and then scale. And we've done that with other organizations. Year one, get the basics, lay the foundations. To the point about the training, give the people an owner of the platform. Make them responsible for it. Make them feel proud of it. Make them so they're the champion of driving change, and then surround them with a really capable team of digital natives. And then build your capabilities out. But you've got to have a plan, as I said, for leveling up the people and bringing them with you. If you don't bring the company with you and the people with you, you'll lose the program and you won't get the results. And also, for me, it's about setting realistic goals and objectives and priorities. What are the pain points you're trying to fix? and how are you going to address them and demonstrate to organizations those are the things you bought this for, and you've done this and done this, and it's proven that deliverable against those pain points.
I think we are up on time, Tom. Yeah? Okay. So thank you guys for coming along. Thank you very much for joining us. This is our first FS marketing event in London, so we're hoping to plan another one later in the year. Hope you can come along. Hope it's been informative. We've still got a networking area after if you've got any further questions, and a big thank you to my guest speakers.
Thank you.